Well, circuits are...
including ours, right? But we want to free our circuits. She's very tired.
Mine are free.
They're free, just like that. Just the absence of two beings frees your circuits.
Talk about absence. I don't know, but I don't care.
The truth arrives.
A truth. A
truth.
momentary truth.
A truth. A temporary
A
truth.
surface, momentary, but important truth. They have.
Thank you, Mars. I love them.
What's happening?
All right then.
Is it working?
So welcome.
No? Not plugged in. Okay.
Go turn it.
Good, sir.
Okay. What happened to our... Oh, that's over there. So, yeah, glad that you're here, everyone.
The big
It's
one.
okay. It's okay. It's all right.
Could you bring it over here? Thank you. That's so important. Time. Yum, 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 yum.
So we'll begin with some settling in, as always. Letting go of the day. Letting go of actually everything in the past that might want to tug at you. Not now. It can tug later, but right now there's nothing you need to do with respect to the past. There's nothing you need to do, really can do, with respect to the future. So we're inviting ourselves in the most friendly way to just be here, in this moment. To be alive and present in this moment, right now. The only moment we can be alive in. And settling in and letting the space within and around you just open, because all of it is in this moment. Take a moment to feel into, not necessarily put words on it, although you might. Just feel into what brings you here today, now. There's a reason, there's a hope, there's an idea, there's a sensation most of all, some feeling. And just feel into it for a moment. Something that's yours. This is not about what it's supposed to be. It's about what brings you here. What does that feel like to you? You don't have to have a big theory. Just a simple sensing into your own orientation right now. And whatever it is that you are seeking, oriented toward, the needs will be supported by your own sense of support, ground. So as always, take a moment perhaps you already have, to sense into the actual contact between the bottom of your body and your seat, your cushion. Something you can concretely feel. It's not abstract. It's nothing you need to judge or be concerned about. Just feel it. And that feeling of support is important. Sometimes you may notice that just naturally you relax a little more, just even hearing the word support or paying attention to the experience of support, and allow yourself to be supported. And that support is coming to you not just from the surface of your chair or your cushion. It's coming to you actually from the whole of the foundation of this building. And really it's coming to you from the very center of this earth, which is directly beneath you. Center of this earth, if you were to drop down a plumb line from the bottom of your spine, and it would easily move through the floor, the foundation, the gravel and dirt and mud, 500 feet down, just easily dropping down, straight line, 5,000 feet. Down. Whatever you experience is down. It's going down, down. 5 miles, 10 miles. Really far down. And coming to anchor directly beneath you in the very center of the earth. That's how deep your support is. That's how deep a holding the earth offers you. And that represents, in every sense, a ground for you to trust and depend on and move forward with the support of. And then maybe it's quite easy to relax your belly, because that whole girdle of ligaments and tensions around your hips and stomach, you're supported. You don't need to do anything but allow that support to hold you and to be open to relaxing into it.
And then your belly can just very easily relax. And your relaxed belly is very amenable to
Filling up with air when you inhale, just naturally. You're not really, changing your breathing, just noticing that there's a natural way the body welcomes air in when you inhale. And we take a few moments to pay attention to those sensations, which are also all right in the present moment. The sensation of breath coming in. Feel it wherever you feel it. There's nothing to change. There's no standard to meet. It's nothing like that. Just being present to the experience of breathing, your breathing right now. Also, you can allow your inhalation to straighten and lengthen and strengthen your spine, which will help it do what it does naturally, your breath, which is open your chest area, your rib cage. You might say your heart space expands. And your heart space is also supported from the very center of the earth. There's an alignment from the center of the earth through the center of your deep belly, your heart. Your heart may be expanding and it may feel tender sometimes, but it has support. And that alignment extends all the way through your throat, your crown, and the apex of space, so you are, in fact, inhabiting a powerful alignment of continuity from the center of the earth, through the center of your body, through the heart of space above your crown. So we'll just breathe together for a minute or two and pay attention to whatever helps you to pay attention to. Sensation of your breathing. You start feeling scattered, you might want to take a moment to remind yourself of the support from the center of the earth. If you're feeling too sleepy, remind yourself of your alignment that reaches to the apex of space, and feel that the breath that comes into your body also comes in with light, and perhaps that relieves some of your sleepiness. So the point is to see how this is for you, to be present to your breathing, and once in a while see if your belly's relaxed. If the air, the energy of your in-breath reaches down to your belly, puffs it out a little bit, to the extent that that's comfortable. Nothing is forced. Body really likes to sit in this way. And you can adjust your sitting in a way that works for you. So we'll just breathe together for a couple minutes. And see if you can be aware of what is occurring without judging it, just observing. Maybe your mind is darting back and forth. So whenever you notice that it has left your intended object, the sensations of your breath, you just bring it back. Or perhaps you're tired, fading. So being in the present also means there's really no space for judgment, as it were. You just notice that's what's happening. And either way, actually, you are present to the quality, the natural quality of clarity in your own mind. Even if you're sleepy and you know that you're sleepy, that knowing itself is what we're calling clarity. There is a knowing. It's pretty much always a knowing. It's one of the intrinsic qualities of your mind, everyone's mind. And this knowing is how we illuminate the world for ourselves. We speak of a light going off in the head when we have an idea. We speak of shedding light on something because of sharing information. A lot of metaphors join the experience of knowing with the example of light, luminosity, shimmering, sunshine, awareness. So if you'd like to experiment with your imagination, you could feel that this quality of luminosity, clarity, awareness itself expresses itself as an orb of light in the center of your chest. Don't worry about how clear you are about exactly what it looks like. You may sense it more than see it. You may see it in your mind's eye. Or just pretend, there it is. That's already a kind of seeing too. So there it is, this luminous orb at the center of your chest. Feels like the center of your heart, but it's not to the left, it's in the center. It's not your fleshy heart. It's what you feel to be the center of your chest. And it's luminous, and it's lighting up the whole inside of your rib cage, actually of your entire body. And it's not only lighting it up, but in lighting it up, all that you see with your mind's eye, with your imagination, with your open-hearted pretending, all that is there now from within is illuminated, is light. So somehow the orb of light at the center of your heart is expanding, shining, lighting up actually every cell of your body from the top of your head. All of the billions of cells in your brain are now points of light, bits of light. What you thought of as spine and ribs and heart and all of that. Everything is luminous. Everything is light. Everything of you is light. Just play with that for a moment, see how it is. Maybe it seems to flow very naturally. Maybe it's something else comes up. Whatever it is, just recognize it. So light is flowing from your heart area out to fingertips, the tips of your toes, through your legs, up through your throat, your crown, we've already said, your ears, earlobes, nails. There's none of that anymore. It's all becoming light. So how is that for you? And we're simply expressing something that actually is the case, which is that you can be aware of every part of your body, sense into it to some degree. And that is an illumination. And we're expressing that by saying that we are of light, no longer matter, no longer something obstructive, just light, like a rainbow, something very bright, but you could put your hand right through it. And then you can just be as you were before, which is really not any different. Just take a moment to digest, absorb, relax, not try to do anything anymore, not try to be light or do light or not be light. Just sitting here for a moment and allowing whatever process is present to continue. Not trying to make anything happen at all. So how was that? How are you? Nod from some. Enigmatic smiles from others. Okay. Nothing to struggle with. Did anybody find yourself working hard? That was not intended. So good. If you didn't work hard, that's great success already. Because I think most of us pretty hard workers. So if you were able to sit here and not work hard, that's very good. So as you know, we are introducing over this period of time, starting in the summer and especially now this fall, we have been talking about our real nature as sometimes called Buddha nature or real mind or mind nature and other beautiful names. And we are moving toward really understanding what it is that we do in what the Tibetan tradition calls Vajrayana or tantric practice. And if you've been here for a while, you know that that's what we've been talking about. Partly because it's really very much at the heart of what we're talking about now, is very at the heart of very many Tibetan Buddhist practices. And for those of you who are coming to the retreat in October, and who haven't had a background in this kind of practice, we want to offer you that. And for other people, it's a review, explained a little differently than you might find in very traditional discussions of this. So we feel it's something very important. And one of the things that is we started to talk last time, why turn into light, never mind into a Buddha, looking like a Buddha. This is a very central part of Tibetan Buddhist practice. Why would we do that? Why would we make up something complicated when we understand that our purpose is to simply be in a completely uncontrived state? And that is true. All of our practices are oriented toward, because we are in the tradition of Dzogchen, all of our practices from beginning to end are oriented toward helping us access this uncontrived, completely natural, beginningless, timeless, maybe sometimes kind of impossible sounding state, which we are nonetheless assured is our very nature. And we've talked about this quite a bit. So why do we do this? Let me remind you that one of the most pernicious aspects of our ordinary untrained perception, pernicious because it keeps us from accessing and being in touch with this uncontrived real nature, and instead keeps us deeply cathected to and grasping at and worrying about and trying to improve and accessorize this false sense of self that we all have. We just all have it. It's like we've got two faces, as we've said in the past. We've got our pristine, uninterruptible wisdom nature. We do. We have it. And we also have all of the occlusions that prevent us from accessing and experiencing it. Both of that is there. It's not a contradiction. So how does this, what supports this kind of wrongful ideation that we are, whether we also feel is very natural to us? And one thing that we keep emphasizing that is a real fulcrum from which everything else mistaken proceeds is the sense of a dividing line between me and you, self and other, self and object, outer and inner, good and bad, but let's just stick with the spatial for the moment. This is what cuts the world in two. And once there is this inner and outer, me and you, we want to protect ours against that which is outside it. And so we learn gestures, we have habits of defensiveness, of capitulation also. But all of these things are predicated, if you consider it, all of our ordinary activities, without our realizing it, usually, are predicated on a sense of, right, here and there. It's fundamental. It's one of the most fundamental things that structures our experience. Now, it's not that everything is all messed up, but there is, from the perspective of the reality that's taught in this system, it's not like that. From the spirit, the great revelation when we saw our first picture of the Earth from space, people can't help remarking and being brought to tears in many cases, especially the astronauts when they were seeing it. If you read about reports, the first thing that strikes you is, there's no lines on the land separating one country from another. I mean, in a way, yeah, of course we know that, but we're so used to thinking of the world cut up into these countries with their various alliances and languages and cultures and histories of wars and self and other. That's fundamental to any sort of sense of identity in the ordinary sense. Now, we all are trusting your ordinary sense of identity enough to discuss this business of duality, because, of course, we're not suggesting that, you destabilize your basic sense of identity. But still, we want to, well, in the end, maybe we are, but very, very slowly. And really, it's a delicate process, which I want to mention, both the delicacy and the importance of this process, because from the perspective of how we are proceeding, and the tradition from which we learn, and the example of the teachers with whom we have studied, there really is something pernicious about the way that we enclose ourselves in a kind of reified silhouette, as if one is cut off from, the rest of the landscape around us. Longchenpa says it's dualism that keeps us in samsara. Chandrakirti says that once we have divided the world into I and mine, and then ipso facto you and yours, we are like the bucket on a water wheel, the image he likes to use, as many of you know. We just go round and round and round, because once we have that situation, we're just thrown into all kinds of conundrums that we have to deal with by actually exacerbating the sense of separation, arguing, making war, protecting our boundaries in some way. So the mismatch between our natural potential and our ability to access it for Buddhism is really rooted in an overwrought sense of separateness, not just between self and other, but actually between ourselves and our own potential. In Zen, famously, as we sometimes remember, students are reminded that the worst fault that they can have is the conviction that they are not Buddhists. They are not enlightened. And we kind of, for all that we're practicing, it's often fueled by a sense that we're not already enlightened, because we have to do something in order to be so. Now, in the sutra traditions, that is a very important model, and we're not leaving it behind by any means. But we are, as I said, looking at, so there are what are called the causal vehicles, the Mahayana Sutra vehicles, where we definitely talk about cultivating the qualities of calm and compassion and love and bodhichitta, and we do the trainings that allow us to open to those qualities. That's a very important method for us, and we will continue to do it. Some of you are doing the foundational practices. We have other practices. Many of you are still doing the practices of the 7 trainings from Longchenpa. If you've been around at all, you know a lot of practices that are practices of me getting to a goal that we might even call, awakened mind or enlightenment. So that has its place in the map of our practices. But we're talking about Tantra now, and Tantra really as a process oriented toward Dzogchen. And the logos of that is a little different. These are what are called fruitional vehicles. So here we emphasize very much that we are already there, but there is here. There's actually no distance. And yet we have a lot to learn about how to open to that enormous space of awakened mind. It's not like some small little cubbyhole that we can just sneak into and cover our heads and, have that kind of cozy safety. It's like a big vastness, the words that are used in the tradition, vast expanse. And we may indeed have, emotional, psychological, theoretical, philosophical, any number of resistances to softening this boundary. It might feel scary. It might feel dangerous, depending on one's own life history. So that's why I say it's a very delicate process. That we're kind of like flying over the terrain now, just kind of looking at it, so that you can appreciate why we do what we do, especially when we really start to do it. Now, therefore, because it, can feel threatening, I guess it's maybe like a possibility of spiritual agoraphobia, people who are afraid of big spaces. Some people are very excited by big spaces, but that could also be an issue. It just might be too exciting, too stimulating. Middle way is what we hope to achieve. In any case, for the path in general, and particularly in the tantric path, because it really is, as you can see, anybody who's talking in any way of softening the line of self and other is talking about a big project, is talking about a big reorientation, reconfiguration of how you are in your own being and how you are in the world. It's not a small thing to do this. And yet it is the very thing that one does do through the cultivation of wisdom, through the cultivation of compassion. These are the two ways we have to dissolve gently as we need. Soften, and finally undo this kind of separation, this two-ness that we live in. We need a lot of support for that. And that's one reason why we have always, from the beginning, we emphasize having a sense of support, just physical sense of support. If you feel grounded and held, then there's a greater sense of security. Also, the practices of taking refuge, the practice of developing a compassionate interest in everyone. So the practice of taking refuge is really a tremendous support. We feel, okay, we have refuge. This is a safe situation for us. That makes us feel stronger. We develop a sense of connection. Everybody in this room, everybody in this city, everybody in the whole world and universe, everybody wants to be happy. Nobody wants suffering. A sense of camaraderie. In the hurricane, it's very, very difficult, but, what sustains us, as many people have said, is, well, we're all in it together. People whose houses were ruined, the people whose houses weren't ruined, know the people whose houses were ruined, and, a lot of help has emerged from the community to the community, and it makes us feel embedded in communitas, and that's important. That's also a source of, we don't do this path alone. We don't do life alone, generally speaking. And if we do, there are challenges. So the sense of support is very important. And we are familiar with that. We have a lot of practices for making us feel supported, the ability to relax, which in full flower could be called shamatha, development of settled attention, which in full flower could be called some type of concentration, compassion, kindness. All of this helps us access this mind, this nature that we really are. And in terms of trainings that we've had already and that you're familiar with, in the first training of Longchenpa, as you may remember, we train to see all external objects as teachers of impermanence. It's one thing the hurricane helps with, right? These houses, these bayous. Everything that we see will not remain as we see it. That's just how it is. And then we bring it in a little more closely, as you may remember. We realize that people, loved ones, pets, close to us, plants, they're not permanent either. Our own bodies are not permanent. Our own thoughts, as I mentioned, Ajahn Rinpoche gave as an instance of the most subtle type of impermanence, the flux of our own thoughts, feelings, sensations is always changing, always moving. And yet when we say I, me, mine, I need, it's as if the referent is some kind of stable. Stable what? There's nothing stable. So the sense that we can, with just a very little reflection, at least in a cognitive way, it takes a long time to digest, but at least in a cognitive way, we can recognize that the sense of I that we talk about is like some sort of blanket thrown over a whole bunch of stuff, which masks from superficial perception that it's just a whole bunch of stuff, That's all the I, what we call I, is. But as we start to see that itself begins to soften kind of our side of the barricade, the divide, because there's nothing really that dividing here. It's just molecules packed together in a little bit of different density than other molecules. And so these kinds of reflections that we do are very helpful. And indeed, softening up the things that divide us at every level is really important. I just happened to read today the recent, I think it's a Time article on the 10-part series that PBS is doing on the Vietnam War. Have you read about that? And because I was thinking about what I wanted to discuss with you tonight, I was very struck by one of the co-directors who said that, Ken Burns, he said he wanted to make the series for everyone. Now, some of us are old enough to know how, and maybe you have read, how very, very divisive the Vietnam War was. People, both here and, of course, in Vietnam. I mean, you felt one way about it, and anybody who felt differently was wrong. And there was a lot of fire and fighting about it. He said that was the great challenge. Particularly, he said, when there's too much pluribus and not enough unum, right? Everybody goes it alone, then there's no body politic or cohesive public discourse. And as we know, that is a big problem. So he said, when in doing this movie, he said he wanted to make it a movie of stories that we can share and don't make demons of one another. So making demons of one another is definitely an outgrowth, a very easy next step outgrowth of this, what might begin as a rather subtle divide between self and other. So it's an important thing to address. And the stories that we share, on the other hand, don't claim that they try to show us that we are not inexorably separate. Because we're not. We couldn't live without each other. Society, your parents, takes a village. Now, in Tantra, we address this sense of separateness in a very particular way, as we've been discussing. We particularly address the sense of separateness we have with respect to our own real nature. to realize which is to be awakened, is to be what is usually often translated as enlightened. You know, this great magic moment on the path when it all comes together and we're so different than we've ever been before. And surely there are many shifts that are quite important that happen along the path. But it's also extremely significant, especially emphasized in the tantric fruitional vehicles. It's extremely important to not feel separate from the goal, to begin to taste the possibility that we are already there. Not in the sense that there's nothing more to understand, but in the sense that this is a possibility that is absolutely ready to awaken. And we do this, one way that we do this in the Tibetan tradition is by meeting our own nature in the form of a very impressive person that we also find very attractive, at least if we have a certain kind of cultural openness. You know, the idea is that Guru Rinpoche is the embodiment of, actually, ultimately our own nature. If you were at Ken's talk on Friday night, he spoke about the difference between mythos and logos, really something very, very helpful for us in Tantra. So at the level of mythos, Guru Rinpoche, there are many levels. Guru Rinpoche is the great, powerful guru predicted by the Buddha when he passed into nirvana in India, and everybody was weeping and crying and wailing and what would happen and what would become of the Buddhist tradition. And he said, don't worry. In, I forget, 800, 900, whatever number of years, he said, there will be a second Buddha in the land of snows, and he will take care of things. And Nyingma in particular understand, I think everybody in Tibet actually understands this to be Guru Rinpoche. Guru Rinpoche. Guru, as you may remember, is from the root gur, Sanskrit root gur, and it means just filled with, heavy with, laden with good qualities. What good qualities? His good qualities? Well, yes, to begin with, we talk about Guru Rinpoche's great qualities. He's very, very powerful. He was the ultimate magician. He tamed all the violent spirits in Tibet. The ground itself was writhing and trying to throw off the car, bringing in the first Buddhist statue from China, the Chinese wife of Chisung Dezhen, Songtsen Gampo. Tibet wasn't welcoming. Political forces, people, the land itself, we are told, didn't welcome Buddhism to begin with. They were too wild. They needed somebody powerful to quiet them down. That was Guru Rinpoche. He had a lot of good qualities. Rinpoche means precious one, means precious teacher. So the Tibetan word lama is their translation from the word guru. So he sounds pretty important, pretty powerful. Maybe I don't like being around important, powerful people. They make me feel nervous. Well, you might have that reaction. Of course, he's very kind. At another level, he's the embodiment of all of the wisdom and compassion of all of the Buddhas. And there are many stories about the miraculous things that he did that can go on for hours and hours and hours, especially if you're in a culture like Tibet and you listen to that and you never once ask, did that really happen? It's just a different mindset. It's a way of playing. Harvey and I have talked and wondered about this for many years, and I think this is one conclusion that we have come to, that in those cultures, nobody ever, puts a scientific thumb to it and said, well, how high did he really jump? I mean, were there really, did he really sit in that fire and not get burned? No. It's the sense of wonder that is evoked by such stories that is most important. It's not the facticity. So Guru Rinpoche, for us, as you know, many of you know, in practice, we feel Guru Rinpoche is very intimately part of us from the beginning. So we sing a song in the morning, if we know the song. We sing, arise, Guru Rinpoche, the flower of my heart, as I awaken in the morning, it's opening. Oh, you know, see me, omniscient Lama, which we can also understand as a call to see ourselves. Because the omniscient Lama is in our own heart. Is an opening, a flowering, an illumination from within. This is Guru Rinpoche. At another level, Guru Rinpoche is our own inner illumination. So in terms of tantric practice, we are practicing to know Guru Rinpoche and finally to identify and even imagine that we are Guru Rinpoche as a way of accessing our real nature. Because we need a transitional object, in a way, to actually, our inner nature, it's always there, but since we haven't noticed it fully yet, we need some kind of cue or help to initially see it as an orange orb of light, Guru Rinpoche glowing with actually the colors of the sun. It's pretty interesting. So the sun is rising in your own heart, and you're calling it Guru Rinpoche. And it looks, we imagine, rising up. You have this alignment that we're always practicing, so Guru Rinpoche can rise right up, sit on the crown of your head, be a protection. What does that mean? Is there some person sitting on the crown of your head? No, but your attention is at your crown, and there's something about the crown that provides a certain kind of access to new information. People who say, this idea just came to me. They don't usually look down at the ground when they say that. This idea just came to me. They say, I have an idea. Where does it come from? It feels. And I think that actually some of the work that's being done now on intuition, what people actually experience when they have these ideas, it does suggest, interestingly enough, that there's a softening of a boundary between here and there. There's some kind of opening, and people feel, ideas just descend. It came to me, we say. So being present at the crown seems to open us to some kind of possibility. So Guru Rinpoche is part of that, helps us focus on these, on the opening of our heart, on the kind of sense of arising, flowering, coming to our crown. And also, we are, by having a relationship that's that intimate with a being who is nothing but, in the end, an expression of enlightenment, and getting to know a little bit about what light feels like in our own experience, we start to learn something about what's possible for us. So, Guru Rinpoche, in a way, is the secret, sacred, already awakened nature you have yet to meet. And the practice of what's called Guru Yoga, and a very special example of which we are going to do at the retreat. If you're doing the foundational practices, you know about Guru Yoga there. It's like the central practice, really, of the Tantric tradition, right? And, and why is it so important? Because we have a natural affinity for feeling like we could meet, a special person and have a relationship with a person. Because we're human beings and we relate to other human beings, as I said last time. So it feels very skillful that in this tradition we have the opportunity to hang out in our imagination with a being with whom we, over time, even if you're not from Tibetan culture, many of us are testaments to the fact that even if you grew up in a completely Western environment, as most of us did, if you feel an attraction to this tradition, you can probably get to be pretty fond of Guru Rinpoche over time. And really to feel that, to connect with the energy, the image, the transmission, the sacred sounds associated with Guru Rinpoche really is a way of connecting to your own deep nature. Let me think what I want to say for now. Time's left. There's infinite things to say about Guru Rinpoche. There's a book called Guru Rinpoche, His Life and Times. I think we have it here. If you like to read stories that are kind of like fairy tales, that are many different stories about Guru Rinpoche. He's called Padma Sambhava. Padma means lotus. Sambhava means arising. And he is considered to have arisen from a lotus. And there are many stories about this. In some stories, he has human parents. In many stories, he does not. And he himself famously declares, when asked who his parents are, he declares, "My parents are infinite space and infinite wisdom." So he is an expression of that enlightened state. He is said to have been found by the great king Indrabhuti, who was longing to meet the Buddha after he saw some beings, birds it seemed, flying in the sky, and he was inspired by that. "What is that? What is that?" he asked his servants. He's the king of Odayana. And they said, "Oh, those aren't birds. That's Buddha and all of his students flying in the sky." And Indrabhuti was very impressed. And he said, I've got to meet this Buddha. How can I go and meet him?" And they said, "You can't. You're a king. You have to stay here and, do your kingly things. But if you get up early in the morning and prepare some nice food and offerings and really pray with full-hearted devotion, the Buddha will come. He will come." And sure enough, the next day, the Buddha came. And Indrabhuti asked for teachings, and the Buddha said, "Well, I can't. You're a monk. You can't. You're a king. If you become a monk, then we can talk." And Indrabhuti said, "I can't become a monk. I'm a king. I have responsibility to all my kingdom here." And then Buddha gave him some very special teachings, which he uniquely among all beings throughout space and time understood in a moment. And just like that, he was enlightened. He's always the example of what could happen to anyone at any time. You just get it. You just hear it. And then you understand. And he later he didn't have any children, and he later was walking by the famous lake near his palace, and lo and behold, there was a lotus, and there was a little boy in it. And Indrabhuti said, "Who are you? Where are your parents?" And that was when he said, "My parents are space, and infinite wisdom." And Indrabhuti took him back to the palace and adopted him, and that is just the beginning of many, many events in the life of Guru Rinpoche. So there is this mythic element. But what does it mean? One thing we can say that it means is that Indrabhuti, his mind is opened by his inspired devotion to the Buddha, another expression of enlightenment. He is open to receive a complete illumination of his real state of being, which he understands right away, perhaps because of all the virtue he had practiced even in that life. He gave away all his wealth to support the needs of the people in his kingdom. And then, having opened rather gloriously, it's very easy for him to meet Guru Rinpoche, to meet his own nature in another form. And this is what we seek to do as well. We seek to use the practice that we will do any kind of Guru Yoga, actually, and then particularly the Guru Yoga that we're going to do in the retreat, which is really also an introduction to Dzogchen orientation, more than an introduction. It's a real connection to it. And the mythos and the logos work very beautifully together. I think that's one of the great things about the Tibetan tradition. You can really relate to it as fantastic stories, which open us to the world of the imagination and a sense of wonder and possibility, and also to very precise indications of what kinds of boundaries we need to dissolve in order to experience our own nature. For example, this is the last thing I will mention of how this can work. You know, the first sacred song, the 7-line prayer that we sing, I mentioned that it always starts with the sound hung, which you're already familiar with, which is an invocation of Guru Rinpoche. And then it says that he is, where he comes from is in the northwest land, on the borderland, Nupchang Tsam. Tsam means border, the edge. So this gets interpreted to mean that he's not caught either in the woes of cyclic existence, of course, nor is he caught up in a state of alienated nirvana, which is like apart from everything else. So it's just one example, and I think a very powerful example of how a mythos, you know, he's on the border. Odayana is, and now we're in Pakistan. People feel it's what is now called Pakistan. So you can say it's a geographical place, and there's been a lot of historical studies about what was going on at that time to understand something about who this Guru Rinpoche was understood to be, but also it has a metaphorical and a metaphysical meaning, which can also transmute into a direct experience of what it means to be free of samsara and nirvana. Just like when we begin, tonight we began to welcome ourselves into the present moment, to be free of the past, of the future, right here. You might say that's also a borderland between past and future, and a kind of space of freedom, not caught in either, just here. Okay, I'll stop there. Do you wish to say anything?
Mm-hmm.
Any conversation? That make any sense? Mm. Okay, let's have a break. Come back. Come back in about 10 minutes, by 8:30.
8:26.
What? 8:26.
I ask precious 3 gems from deep in my pained heart. See me with compassion. I have no other hope. This dear human body impermanence besets. Do you not fear your death, good and faithful student. The 5 skandhas gather and disperse who knows when. Heartily think on death, good and faithful student. Karma never deceives, so give up wrongful thoughts. Engage Dharma wholly. I ask precious 3 gems from deep in my pained heart. See me with compassion. I have no other hope. This dear human body, impermanence besets. Do you not fear your death, good and faithful student? The 5 skandhas gather and disperse who knows when. Heartily think on death, good and faithful student. Karma never deceives, so give up wrongful thoughts. Engage Dharma wholly.
Teme karzoloma Lendre lo me yempe megi do parapohin la ye
I ask precious three gems from deep in my pained heart. See me with compassion. I have no other hope. This dear human body, impermanence besets. Do you not fear your death, good and faithful student? The five skandhas gather and disperse who knows when. Heartily think on death, good and faithful student. Karma never deceives, so give up wrongful thoughts. Engage Dharma wholly.
Kunjoren chena sama dovi nimbena toje shenje ziro resa yena medo Taka me yilete mita to bolete Chitre den ye te de karzoloma Andi pung in so pa nan ki lo te mendo ni ne che wara so hi te de karzoloma Lendre lo me yempe megi do parapohin la ye
I ask precious three gems from deep in my pained heart. See me with compassion. I have no other hope. This dear human body, impermanence besets. Do you not fear your death, good and faithful student? The five skandhas gather and disperse who knows when. Heartily think on death, good and faithful student. Karma never deceives, so give up wrongful thoughts. Engage Dharma wholly.
Kunjoren jena sama dowe nilembena Toje shenje ziro resa yena medo Taga me yilete mita to bolete Chidre den ye de karzon lo ma Andi pung en so pa nan ki lo te mendo ni ne ki wara sa hi de kar zo lo ma Lendre lo me yempe me gita parapoye la yege
I ask precious 3 gems from deep in my pained heart. See me with compassion. I have no other hope. This dear human body, impermanence besets. Do you not fear your death, good and faithful student? The 5 skandhas gather and disperse who knows when. Heartily think on death, good and faithful student. Karma never deceives, so give up wrongful thoughts. Engage Dharma wholly.
Kunjoren jena sama dowe nilembena Toje shenje ziro resa yena medo Taga me yilete mita to bolete Chidre den ye de karzon lo ma Andi pung en so pa nan ki lo te mendo ni ne ki wara sa hi de kar zo lo ma Lendre lo me yempe me gita parapoye la yege
I ask precious 3 gems from deep in my pained heart. See me with compassion.
So funny. Larger than life, Bethany. It's okay. You can see her. I just wanted to mention, as Steve said I should, Guru Rinpoche is at the center of this, which is the field of all of the main figures of the Heart Essence Vast Expanse tradition. Is the figure facing us. His consort Yeshit Tsogyal, who is the subject of our April retreat, is with him. Guru Rinpoche is also the central tanka back there, and that's one of his most classic kind of poses. We'll explore his symbolism next time. And also, standing right behind Gary is Guru Rinpoche and his 8 famous manifestations. This is Shakyamuni Buddha, and the others are all also figures from the tradition. Okay, just thought I'd mention that. Buddha of Compassion, Avalokiteshvara. So anything?
So, should we do our experiment?
Oh, our experiment.
Here comes the moment.
I know. The problem is that I couldn't think of a question.
What?
She couldn't think of a question.
That's all right. Just say hi.
So I'm not a great thinker, but all the technology seems to be working.
I can't understand her very well. Do you?
Oh.
Uh-huh. Okay.
What is it?
Your microphone makes you hard to understand, Gary
Oh, I
says.
don't even know where I have them. Somewhere in this laptop.
I agree.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
But it's lovely to see you.
Likewise. Absolutely. And it was lovely.
And it was lovely. It was really lovely.
Yeah. So is our experiment concluded for now?
You're the one that has to judge if that monitor will work.
The monitor works, but I can't understand her. Okay, I figured. Okay.
So is there anything I should do differently?
No, Gary will figure it out. That was better. Okay. We sounds so rude to say. You're going to be muted again.
I didn't have anything to say anyway.
Maybe it's a relief.
Bye now.
Bye for now.
I love you.
Love you
Love
too. Say hi to Dan.
I will indeed.
It's clearer.
Yeah, it got clearer. Steve. Oh, but you need them here.
Just so I can make sure I got it all, because I'm sometimes dense or oblivious or whatever.
Or I'm unclear.
That too, possibly. So Guru Rinpoche is a manifestation of Buddha at a later time who had a particular chore to do. Is that
Yeah, he was on tour.
right?
Chore, not tour.
Chore.
Both apply.
Yeah. And we imagine them, and we imagine them, because they're the teaching, which is also a manifestation of our own true self.
Yes.
So if I'm looking at Guru Rinpoche, I'm looking at myself in a exalted sort of form.
You're looking at your real nature, and
Right.
that's a process, of course, to be able to
Right.
access that. So yes, you basically got it. I'll tweak it slightly. So Guru Rinpoche is the actually embodiment of all of the Buddhists, of the past, present, and future. Shakyamuni predicted that he would arise as a second Buddha, which is just a way to say, too, that the important qualities that the Buddha was teaching the world were not going to go out of existence or become unavailable. There would be a teaching and a teacher in the future. He's actually said to have emanated from the heart of Amitabha, the Buddha of limitless light and limitless, very closely coordinated with the Buddha of limitless life, Amitayus. Where is he? We have him here somewhere. He's red. Over there. Yeah. And I'll tell you the story next time. He's more rays of light pour out of the heart of Amitabha, Amitayus, and Hri, which is his sacred syllable, seed syllable, descends into the flower, which then turns into the seed syllable becomes Guru Rinpoche, whose seed syllable is Hung. So when we say, never mind, yeah, Oma. So we Oma Hung Hri, what we say at the beginning of Great Bliss Blazing when we sing that. So Oma Hung are the sacred manifestations of enlightened body, speech, and mind, and Hri is the seed syllable of kind of where it all begins from, Amitabha, who is the Dharmakaya, nature of reality expression. How did it go at the beginning when you were invited to see about, illuminating from the inside and becoming light? Didn't seem like that ruffled any feathers, but I'm just checking. How was that? How was that for you? Huh? Getting a nod from Selwa? Okay.
Wait, it's not on.
I was very tense when I got here, and as soon as I start lighting myself, I feel lighted, relaxed. It really helped me to feel like if I was floating. On the room. So thank you very much for that practice.
Thank you. Thank you for that. How are you? How do you feel right now?
Much better. I feel great.
You feel great. Interesting. So sometimes, not always, and not for everyone, always, but sometimes it can have quite a lot of impact. Just using your natural imagination. Anybody else? How was that for those of you for whom I imagine this was new? I don't know.
So at the beginning of the meditation, I had a hard time to stay in the present moment. I'm very much in the future, very excited about going home, back to my home country, but it's still 4 weeks and I can't stay present. But once we were imagining light. I was imagining myself as the light. I also imagined everybody at home, my members of family as a light, and the excitement a little bit was slowed down. My mind was so fast, and then kind of brought me back to a present moment.
Interesting. So somehow just being present to light calmed you down. Interesting.
Which is very hard to do every time before I go to see my relatives that I haven't seen for long times.
Yeah. Sweet. So it may or may not have that effect in the future, but you could try. Seems like, good. Anyone else? What about you guys? Wait, if you would wait, please, to get the...
Am I close enough? Okay. No, because personally, my mind tends to wander a lot. I can kind of consider myself scatterbrained. And so whenever we have to, focus on something, it can become very easy for me to just think about other things, even if it's just like future, past, present. But once we had to imagine light, it was like I was putting my mind to work to use my imagination to become light and stuff like that.
I see. Interesting. So that allowed you to be less scattered than paying attention to the sensations of your breath?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because Because I was kind of imagining, light traveling everywhere, just like you said, to my fingertips, my toes, my knees.
Oh, I see.
My head, so I can put my imagination to do something that was kind of easier to focus, and I grew less tense here.
Oh, interesting.
In my center, because when we started, I was a little more. There was more tension right here in my center than in my mind.
I see.
And once we imagined light flowing everywhere, it kind of just let go.
So you were aware of the tension. That's already,
Yeah.
Tension is always in the present. So to the extent that you're aware of the tension, you were in the present. And then interesting that it was easier. Well, so there's different kinds of attention. There's attentional focus that is focused on a small area, which is really what you would be doing if you're following if you're following the sensation of your breath, it's fairly focused. But there is also a more open focus, which sometimes we explicitly practice, which in effect is what you found when you were, following the light throughout your body. Then your mind is, I can understand why that would be more relaxing, because you weren't tightly focused or even trying to tightly focus on anything. You were just following your natural tendency to open up, but now it was in line with what you were actually doing. Does that make sense? Yeah, good. These are really important things to notice, about oneself and just learn. So where your affinity is, how something affects you, and just to be aware of how something affects you is already, that means you're in the present moment because you're looking into your experience, and that's always really the most important thing. So thank you for sharing. You guys want to say anything? Don't want to put you on the spot, but. Doesn't look like it. Okay. Was it hard? No, not hard. Okay. All right. Yes, Mark.
Sorry, I was just going to ask a question for Shannon Stearman, who is watching online.
Wow.
Shannon wrote, I'm a little confused about alienated nirvana. Could you say a little more?
That's not a phrase I consciously used. Oh, I know what I meant.
I think you used it.
Oh, yeah. I meant like nirvana as if it's this whole separate thing and not as it is usually understood. Nirvana and samsara in the end are actually not separate. That's all I meant. Like samsara and nirvana, two different countries. Is a strange phrase, I have to admit.
It's the... Hello, am I there? It's to... In the foundational vehicles, nirvana is this piece that is completely and utterly distinct from samsara. It's the ultimate refuge. It's the ultimate destination. It's the ultra goal, but it's completely dualistically segregated and alienated from samsara. In Mahayana, that alienation is resolved as epitomized in the Heart Sutra, where form is emptiness, emptiness is form, and emptiness is glossed often as nirvana. So the ultimate and the conventional are non-dually identified in Mahayana, and so it creates a different flavor for understanding what the spiritual goal is. It's not for something that's separate from the world, when the world being seen as something horrific and just negativistically. That's why the word alienated was used. Creating a commentary for Anne.
Thank you. It's good to be married to your own commentator. What were you going to say?
So you were I may be jumping ahead. You said that we're going to be using a relationship moving forward, like in Guru Yoga, we're going to create a relationship, and then we'll get to know ourselves in that way. And you mentioned that we may have kind of like reactions, like you may get nervous because it's like you may use a kind of like a stand-in pattern of this is an important person,
right?
And there's other reactions too.
Sure.
What if you get stuck in that and that gets really strong?
And that becomes your practice to work with that.
Okay, how?
talking to your friends and teachers.
Okay.
That's like too individual.
Okay.
It's not like a template.
Mhm.
Everybody who feels this way does this, that it's more nuanced than that. So you would look very carefully at your particular, what was coming up for you, how it felt in your body, talk about it, with us. And actually it's very important, and it does come up. And sometimes, it could take a while. And it's really, really important and really valuable.
And a while could be weeks, months, years, or decades. And much like self-hatred is one of the plagues that afflicts and inner critics, and spiritual superego afflicts our Western practice, I'd say that in general, it seems that Tibetans have a kind of natural inclination towards open-heartedness, towards spiritual authority. And I don't know if I want to go to a generalization about modern autonomous Westerners, but let's just say that it is not uncommon for issues of a quote, an authority figure or a spiritual leader or an imagined hierarchical authority figure that is at least sometimes portrayed as male, but not as always. I mean, in May we will be working with a female spiritual leader to bring up issues that, at least nowadays, the way we understand some of those issues, usually have some precursors in family of origin issues with either one's mother or one's father or a combination of both. And so, and as Annie even alluded to, we talk about non-duality and merger and dissolving boundaries. And just as one of the classic obstructions that might arise for somebody looking at a male authority figure may have to do with authority and have to do with maleness, when people hear about dissolving self and other, some people had mothers who were all-encompassing and dissolving and melting into you, and that can be either physically or mothers who read your mind. I mean, there are all sorts of variants on this, but you start hearing about dissolving self and other boundaries, and you can start vibrating at a pretty high frequency because that stirs up issues. And those are things that certainly we in the West want to talk about between teacher and student and work with very, very compassionately and very, very sensitively. And it's not like a light switch that you can just switch off like, wow, you're talking about self and other, and my mother kind of engulfed me my whole life, and I'm just going to sort of take mama and put her on the train, as it were. It's not like that. It's really a process. And you could have both. I mean, so life can be very, very complicated in spiritual practice.
And it's I think the main thing I want to say about that, people, one might feel this is an obstruction on my path, and so I'm going to quit or something. And what's really important to know, I'll say ahead of time, because honestly, everybody who really does a path bumps up against something. If you don't, you're probably not really doing, you're not really facing yourself in a certain kind of way that doing that is the path. It's not the path. It's when we talk about working with our obstructions, recognizing them, that all sounds very pretty until you actually meet one, and then you think, oh, that's not the path. I had to do something else. This meditation's not working for me because now I'm feeling this. Well, it is working for you because you're feeling this. And that's why, again, the need for support is so great, because it's not pleasant. It can be quite unpleasant. So when you say you meet yourself, yes, but not necessarily right off the bat the best part of yourself. You might have to meet the armor in front of that, really, before that happens. And it's good. I mean, it's meaningful, actually. It's not easy necessarily, but it's meaningful. And again, that's why support is really important. You don't want to be left alone with your machinations and your personal demons. You just don't.
And it is a matter of both faith and to some extent personal experience that the solid obstructions that we confront, including all of these kind of psychological films that we all have, vis-a-vis religious figures, spiritual leaders, and imagined spiritual figures. When we say form is emptiness, emptiness is form, it's very, very profound and very, very significant. And it means that ultimately there's no obstruction that is not permeatable by wisdom. But that's not to say it doesn't take time and some persistence and patience and blessings, ultimately. It's a whole big enchilada of a process. Very profound.
Good. Yeah. That's also why it's so important to, keep judgment under control, because that, as Harvey already indicated, just exacerbates things tremendously. So that itself is a big project. Stop beating yourself, if that's what you do, which a lot of us do. Yeah.
Who? What?
Joanne Schneider wrote, "Last time it was said that Guru Rinpoche is a manifestation from our heart and we ask him to sit at our crown. Does he come from our heart when he is seated on a lotus in a Bodhi tree in front of us?"
He comes from wisdom, which is already in you, fundamentally. He's an expression of wisdom. And so he comes to sit, yes, when he's, he can come out and in and out, but always he is a manifestation of the wisdom which is everywhere and which is in you. And he's never separate from you.
And it doesn't have to get too technical.
Exactly.
In the morning, at night, we can't imagine that Guru Rinpoche is descending from our shoulder or our head or our throat, wherever he might have been hanging out, into our heart. Because when you eat, Guru Rinpoche can be in your throat. When you're walking, he can be on your right shoulder. When you're meditating in the morning and you're doing foundational practice, you invite him up to the top of your head. So at night, you invite him down to your heart. Some practices, we have Guru Rinpoche in front of us. You don't have to get too technical as to what corridor he went through to get in front of you. You just even spontaneously can imagine that Guru Rinpoche is in front of you in space. So, but there are points in practice sometimes where that kind of highway is very, very clearly articulated. And if it is clearly articulated, like in the foundational practices in the morning, from the heart to the top of the head, we do that. But if it's Guru Rinpoche is in front of us, we're not going to spend too much time considering where did he arise from, because the reality of space, the true space, the sphere of reality can always manifest as Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Guru Rinpoche. It doesn't have to have a particular pathway. So sometimes it's
the
helpful.
Metaphorical heart of you is everywhere.
The metaphorical heart is everywhere.
But for us to feel, close to that, it's helpful to feel your own heart.
Okay.
The main thing is not to feel separate, wherever he is, facing you, here.
Yes, so it's a bit of an early and in practice thing to get very concrete almost about it. He's starting here and then he's going up here. But ultimately here and there will have less significance, and it's a process. Okay. Time for prayers.
Dedication.
Dedication. Who's doing all of that? We ended up with 2 books tonight.
Thank you so much. Oh, man.
Yay.
Okay.
Names for one of the books. I don't know how we're going to do this.
Just do it. You read one and I'll read from this one.
Who's going to do prayers?
What do you mean, who's going to do prayers?
Who's going to lead prayers?
You can.
Do you have a microphone?
Yeah, yeah.
Dedication, teachers, blessing. Elizabeth,
Would you like
can
to light the candle, Renee, since you're here?
Renee? Okay, Renee. And then we're going to read 2 books.
Celebrate your being here. Okay.
We could do it. You read one name, I read one name.
No. Let's make it as complicated as possible.
Isn't that our style?
That is our style, actually. But let's not do it tonight. Anyway, let's sing first.
Okay, so we will start with the group practice prayers, the laminated sheet, the blessing. Dedication. By this good may I swiftly once become a great guru, lead all beings, everyone, to reach to that fairy ground. And we flip to the other side, long life prayers. In a pure land ringed by snow mountains, source of bliss and benefit for all, powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezi, lotus feet please stay hundreds of years, fill vast space with your activities. Om Swasti. Flawless refuge sources give blessings, teacher, protector, kind Dharma Lord, cure may Tuten Gyatso wondrous good, lotus feet ever, deeds everywhere. Namo Guru. Glorious, wise K, bright sun and kind song, now that your work here has subsided, please think of our pain, sad sufferings. We pray you quickly take form again. Om Swasti. And Harvey like the waxing moon, may your life and merit flourish grow, through the threefold skillful pundits' deeds, live long benefiting all you meet. By the true power of 2 Vajra truths, 3 jewels, 3 roots, Buddha's compassion, faithful Sangha and aspiration, may this prayer be realized at once. May there be a great fine new temple, great seat for all high practice learning, which having spread in all directions, male and female yogis everywhere, practice and further the teachings there. And we flip over to the other side. Blessing at the bottom. With all of you in mind, we light this lamp of clarity. May the glow of love, wisdom shine within us, everyone, till we all rise forth born in one enlightened mandala.
And with sharing our merit for all living beings throughout space, specifically tonight we offer to His Holiness Lungdo Dema Nyima, the Menri Chizin, who has gone beyond, Wyatt and family, especially Mom, Dennis Rose, Millie and Barbara Schneider and family, Ajahn Migmalar in the Bardo, Pat Macon, perhaps out of the Bardo and in rebirth now, Rosalind Dow in the Bardo, Ted Bale, Pilash and Vasu, Charlie Buck, Gary and their families, Faith, her wisdom teeth, Melissa Weimer, Bardo and family, Karen, Sarah F., Sarah Lorraine, all affected by weather earth movements, Catherine and family, George P., Pat in transition, Audrey, Martha, Irene, Jenna Wood, Melissa Ann Weimer in Bardo, Voros family, Miriam, Cancer, Vanda's baby, Dana, Ken, Helen Arrington in the Bardo, Bobby Patrick in the Bardo, Mexico City, Hadley family, Raina family, victims of storms, Lonnie, Sandy, Bevan, and Nova, all three in the Bardo, Nora, Benny, Camachos, Pueblo, and Mexico City, Mike. Matthew Stewart and family.
Raina family, Celia V. in the Bardo, Aida McGregor, Aida's mom in the Bardo, Bev McGregor, Doug McGregor, Tabby and kids, Palaj, Vasoda, and Siddhart, Charlie Buck, Gary Gant, Cheryl McCurdy, Doug and Marlene Wilson, Bud Caulfield in the Bardo, Lynn Robinson, Eileen, Ann, and Jerry Jordan, Jean Litka, people in Puerto Rico, Jermaine Bartlett, Health and Healing, Tom Khaled, Health, Mexico City, earthquake victims, David Ford, Wyatt, Steve, Carolyn, Alice, and Mike, Jan Goodman, Tenku, Mark, and Millie Schneider in the hospice.
And letting that light, again, the light of your clarity in the center of your heart, this time, if you like, with a luminous letter A, pronounced Ah at the center. And sound and light expanding through your body and out into the room to everyone, everywhere, everyone that we've named, and all beings to alleviate, heal, whatever needs alleviating and healing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
We have our family program starting, I think, this week. I had some impression of that. Look at our website for all of our programs. Our Sunday program.
There will be meditation Sunday at 11. There will be first Sunday, the first Sunday of October, which I think is October 1st or 2nd. And Teaching Tuesdays continue. If you are interested in the retreat, you please fill out an application for it. And if you have questions about that, ask any of us who have been around for a while.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Be well.
May all be well, especially all the victims of nature everywhere. Yikes. Yeah. Terrible. We didn't even mention victims of Maria. God.